In this video, we're talking about the best decades ever, and this might be what most truck drivers would call the heyday decade of trucking. Movies were coming out all about trucking, strikes were taking place, truck drivers were standing up for themselves. So much happened in this decade, including the best truck driver that I've ever known being born. And yes, I'm talking about the 1970s. You know, when I'm at home, I bought all kinds of different stuff for lighting and everything, and I got that pretty much under control. Now, the problem is half of my videos are done on the road. When I do them at nighttime, I don't have the best lighting in here. You know, I got lights up there, one of them's red, I got these lights, the middle one's a blue lights. So I'm sorry about that. I should probably work on getting like a, you know, one of those rings or something, or the, you know, the ring lights for here in the truck. But I do apologize for that, and I'm going to do the best I can here to, you know, do this video the best way I possibly can. But yeah, we're going to talk about the 1970s. I've been working on this for a while, and I actually started decades videos a while back. I guess about 6 months ago, and I didn't have quite the following that I do now, and I decided to put it off until I started getting more of a following. And now I am. Guys that are liking the Monfort stuff, the CF, the, you know, all me talking about old trucking companies. So I will put, you know, up here, I guess it's actually going to be up here. It's going to show up when I put it up. The decades videos, you can see I did combined 40s and 50s, then I did 60s, but now we're doing 70s. And this is why I waited a while. It's because the 70s were possibly known as like the heyday of trucking. You know, so much happened during that time, and yeah, let's get into it. All right, well, in 1970, Ford released its L Series Louisville line. You know, the Ford Louisville, that whole line ran for a very long time. 1971, the movie Duel was released. Steven Spielberg movie, maybe, I don't want to say known as the first trucking movie, not the way I want to be known as a trucker. We never actually saw the trucker in that. Man, that was just a creepy movie. He's harassing a Dodge Dart. I believe the guy's driving a Dodge Dart. Doesn't know why. Not one of my favorite movies ever. But hey, there it was. By the way, I keep looking at my computer here. See, I got my computer here. Has the notes on it from all the studying up that I did on the 1970s. 1971, Diamond Rio, company we don't hear much about. Not anymore. They released the C-116 Apollo line. Pretty cool truck. Yeah, and in my notes here, it says in 1971, Mack released the 4200 and 4300 Transtar conventionals. Why would I have put that? Anyway, in 1971, International released the 4200 and 4300 Transtar conventionals. The next year, in 1972, they released the Paystar series, the more heavy-duty series. I don't know if they still call them Paystars. I don't know. Anyway, in 1972, also, PACCAR was formed. Now, PACCAR, as most of you know, is the parent company for Peterbilt and Kenworth. And they were bought separately. Kenworth was started first, Peterbilt was started later, and bought up by the Pacific Car and Foundry Company. Well, in 1972, they decided to call themselves PACCAR. In 1973, Freightliner released their Powerliner Cabover. Pretty cool truck. In 1973, also, Dodge released the Bighorn. It was Dodge's jump into the big truck business, and the thing about that is, in that year they only made 261 of them, and that was because of the oil embargo. You know, trucking was changing, and it wasn't you know, all for the best at the time. And the end of that year showed a whole lot of change, and we'll get into that here. Yeah, we'll tell you what happened at the end of 1973 that may have changed the trucking industry forever. All right, so on December 3rd, 1973 at 10 p.m., J.W. Edwards was his name. His CB handle was River Rat. This is a guy with a big old set of balls. He ran out of fuel on I-80 in Pennsylvania near the Blakesley exit. That's pretty eastern Pennsylvania. I didn't write down the exit number. Yeah, he ran out of fuel. Not because he's a bad truck driver. This is because of the oil embargo. A lot of people think he just shut his truck down. That's not true. He actually did run out of fuel. But he stopped it in the middle of I-80, just stopped the truck. He was from Overland Park, Kansas. Stopped the truck and said, "I'm done. I'm done." And he got other truck drivers to stop with him. Here was his problem. Because of the oil embargo, he had to stop. They were rationing fuel at the truck stops. He'd have to stop at almost every truck stop. Remember, there weren't near as many back then as there are now, especially across I-80 in Pennsylvania. But there weren't near as many. He would have to stop all the time. And I don't know, you know, you guys were around at the time. Please let me know what the rationing was. Was it 50 gallons? Was it 20 gallons? I mean, I don't know. I do know that trucks didn't get near the mileage that they do now. I mean, I drive a Peterbilt and I, you know, average about 6 miles to the gallon, but a lot of guys are doing up to 10 miles a gallon. But trucks didn't do it in 1973. So yeah, they were being rationed, and he just had enough. He shut down, got on the CB, started talking to drivers, and he actually became the, say, I don't know, we're going to talk later about the movie Convoy, but he basically was the Chris Christopherson character in that, but this was real life. And he stopped the road. His complaint was that he had to stop at every fuel stop. By the next morning, December 4th, word had spread, and there were shutdowns all over 10 states. One truck driver actually said, he was interviewed by the news, and he said, Congress won't hear what we're saying until they run out of toilet paper. That's so funny now, because nobody ever ran out of toilet paper until just recently during COVID. So, yeah, that it's just a funny statement. You know, when we were running out of toilet paper a couple years ago, it wasn't funny, but looking back now, that strike lasted 3 days, and it was mostly peaceful everywhere, except in Ohio. Ohio actually released the National Guard, and they used tear gas on truck drivers. On December 5th, the Pennsylvania, remember I am from Pennsylvania, so this was pretty cool to hear. The Pennsylvania Governor Milton Shapp met with J.W. Edwards. Milton Shapp is a former truck driver, actually. He used to run coal truck. How much things have changed now? When are you ever going to see a truck driver run for governor nowadays? Well, yeah, I'm not going to do politics on this channel, but I'm pretty sure most of us are on the same page with that. So he met with him. He did promise for more fuel for the truck stops. He was going to work on getting more fuel for the truck stops. Because it wasn't the truck stops screwing guys over, it was the truck stops only getting so much, and they were rationing it out so that they could take care of all their customers. A lot of people say that this is actually what sparked all the movies. Obviously, I said Duel came out, but a lot of movies came out after this. A lot of people say this is actually what sparked a lot of the movies and the modern day cowboy image that came throughout the 70s and the CB craze. On December 13th and 14th, there was another 2-day strike. And at this time, it started to get a bit violent with protesters were slashing tires on trucks, drivers that weren't obeying their strike. They shot at some vehicles, and even one truck driver was stabbed. I didn't hear that he died, so I assume that he lived. Yeah, by the way, guys, I am showing you, there was 2 separate strikes, and we'll get to it later. I tried to separate them by which strikes they were, the strikes of 73 or 79, which we'll get to 79 later, but a lot of these images I may have messed up. I did the best I could. A lot of them were unclear as to which strike they were from, but so 1974 starts, and there was another strike on January 31st, because really nothing had been done. Very little had been done. At this point, now's when they started, a lot of truck drivers have heard about this, bricks being dropped off the overpasses as trucks who weren't following the strike were going down the road. And man, I actually heard a story, and I can't remember the guy that told me. He was a guy who did drive in 1973, and he said he was just trying to get home to go on strike, and he would actually, every overpass, they were changing lanes. Right as it came to the overpass, they'd whip it over the other lane. And he was for the strike. He was just trying to get home to do it instead of doing it out on the road. Crazy stuff, very scary stuff when you think about it. On February 11th, the strike ended because the government agreed to allowing everybody to charge a 6% fuel surcharge and add more fuel to the truck stops. You remember, this is during regulation, you hear about deregulation. This is when things were regulated much differently and prices were controlled. So allowing that 6% was probably a pretty big deal. Yeah, very interesting. And that did calm down for a while. I said before, though, later 70s, we're going to talk about it again. Well, I got tired last night, decided to finish today, so let's get back to the wonderful 70s. And so after the strikes were over, 1974, Mack, this time it actually was Mack, released the cruise liner cab over. Pretty cool truck. And a TV show that I never saw. Maybe I'll have to go see if I can get some old episodes or something. Called Moving On was released. And White Freightliner, they were called White Freightliner at the time, released the WFC, the first conventional, the WFC. This is the truck that later became the famous FLC 120, ran through the 80s, and actually, it then became the FLD 120, FLD Classic. It's been a pretty long-running truck. So, yeah, 1975, the TV show White Line Fever came out. There's another show that I've never seen before. I really got to get with the times. Anyway, in 1976, Kenworth released the Aerodyne Sleeper. I was actually just talking to a friend of mine about the Aerodyne when it came out, and that had to be really, I mean, we know it's iconic, but it had to be really amazing at the time to have such a big sleeper. I don't know if this was the first stand-up sleeper factory. I don't know. You guys, let me know when you see that out there. But to put it on the cab overs too, they put it on the K100s, and it's a sleeper that I've always loved. Many of you know, and if you don't, I own not only this Peterbilt, I also own a 04 Kenworth, and that one has a kind of retro, because the Aerodyne wasn't made in 04. It was actually the Aero cab by then, a little bit sleeker one, but has a 120-inch sleeper on it. That's a Aerodyne sleeper. So definitely a sleeper that I like. 1976 also, Ford released their LTL 9000 series. That's a truck that I always loved. Just I don't know, just a tough-looking truck. Speaking of tough-looking trucks, GMC released the General in that year. Yep, another pretty cool truck. The hit song Convoy hit #1 by C.W. McCall. And actually at the end of this, I'm going to talk about C.W. McCall a little bit. Tell you guys some things that you may or may not have known about him. And in 1976, released, and I thought 77 was the first year, but this came up as 76. So maybe that's just the year that it was released. But probably my favorite truck of all time. The truck that I thought was ahead of its time. I really loved it. Always loved it. The Mack Superliner. Man, still to this day when you see one, it's just, you know, such a beautiful truck. It looks like it could have rolled off the assembly line yesterday. Just with being so far ahead of its time. Yeah, the 1977 GMC then released their Brigadier, the year after they released the General. Will go on to be GMC's best-selling truck. Used in many, I guess they used that medium duty, heavy duty. It was, yeah, there's a lot of Brigadiers have been around. And something very iconic in the trucking industry happened in 1977. So, Smokey and the Bandit was released. Quite possibly the most famous trucking movie ever. Undoubtedly the most famous trucking movie ever. If I sit at home too long, I end up watching Smokey and the Bandit, and gets me in the mood to go back on the road. I don't know why, because I don't drive like that. Things have changed over the years, but still a great movie. Here's something I don't understand. Why is Bandit so famous? They call Bandit, you know, Bandit's been known as a famous truck driver. He may be the most famous person in a truck driving movie, but he didn't drive the truck. In fact, all he did was drive the truck to Snowman's house so that Snowman could then drive the truck. Snowman was the hero. Oh, I miss Jerry Reed. I love his songs. Anyway, 1978, movie High Ballin' came out. Also in 1978, the Convoy movie came out, which was based on the song, basically. They made the movie from the song, which isn't usually how that happens, but yeah, it featured Ali McCall, and I heard there was some other dude in there, Chris Christopherson or something, but once I saw Ali McCall, that's all I noticed the rest of the time. By the way, Ali McCall is still alive today and is still beautiful at 84 years old. And yeah, the other movie, which I never really considered a trucking movie, maybe I need to watch it again. It's been a number of years. Every Which Way But Loose came out. And that has my favorite actor of all time in it. Yes, I'm talking about Manus the orangutan. Clyde was his name in the movie. Was played by an orangutan named Manus. And but hey, Clint Eastwood, you did a great job too. Also in 1979, the movie Flatbed Annie and Sweetie Pie, Lady Truckers, came out. I haven't seen that. Another thing on my bucket list here to watch now. So yeah, 1979 also, early on that year, the best truck driver I've ever known was born, and that's me. I was born in 1979. So obviously I missed the heyday of the 1970s trucking, but yeah, pretty interesting. Best truck driver I know. But things went downhill after I was born in the trucking industry, or uphill, I don't know. It depends on how you choose to look at it. So not too long after I was born in 1979, the 3 Mile Island disaster took place. that wasn't really trucking related. I live like 5 miles from 3 Mile Island. My mom evacuated. My dad was on the road, and my mom evacuated, went to my grandfather's house in New Jersey, which, knowing what we know now, New Jersey might not have been far enough if things had gone bad. But right after that, in June of 1979, this is when things really went downhill, or like I said, maybe it was uphill, but the violence level made it a real bad thing. That there was more trucker strikes, and these were violent trucker strikes. Just many attacks, again, things being thrown off of bridges, guys being attacked who were running, just, yeah. Florida during that time issued a state of emergency, as well as Georgia. There was a lot of problems with produce crops that time of year. Most states were only receiving 30% of their fuel deliveries because of the trucker strike. And actually, it's hard to believe, but it says there was no fuel delivered in New Jersey. I didn't know that, and my in-laws are from New Jersey. I'll have to ask them about that, because they would have remembered this time. In fact, I believe at this time yeah, my wife was born the next year, so yeah, I'll definitely get an update from them on that. Only 75% of the meat to be delivered in the United States was not making it. This being summertime, peaches, corn, tomatoes, watermelons were left rotting in the fields. A lot of it wasn't even being, they were leaving it in the fields because if they harvested it or picked it, brought it in, it would rot faster. So they decided to leave it out there and see what happened, and we lost a lot of crop. So obviously this affected everybody. It had gotten so violent that the Alabama governor, his name was Fob James, F-O-B, James. I've never heard the name Fob. He actually told truck drivers who were choosing to run during the strike to arm themselves and shoot to kill. Don't be a victim. I mean, that's pretty wild. That is crazy. I was alive during that time, but obviously I was just a baby. I don't think I would ever want to see that, you know, in my industry. You know, over the years, as long as I've been driving, anytime something happens in trucking, they say we need to strike again, and I don't know if I'm for that or against that, but what I am against is the violence that happened through all that time. So yeah, so 2 strikes in the 70s, crazy time. Now, I told you I'd talk about C.W. McCall a little bit, and I learned some interesting stuff through his research, so I figured I would pass that on to you. So in 1973, a man named Bill Fries from an Omaha-based ad company called Bozell and Jacobs created a fictional character called C.W. McCall. The reason he did this is because he was hired to do commercials for a company called Old Home Bread. And if you look on YouTube here, they do show those old commercials. I'm not quite sure the copyright laws here on YouTube, so I don't want to take it. But go over and look at some of them commercials after this video. Watch this video first. Anyway. But CW, and the story of it is, a truck driver's driving for a bread company, and every day he stops in at the Old Home Filler Up and Keep On Trucking Cafe to see Mavis, the waitress. But later on, Old Home Filler Up and Keep On Trucking Cafe became a song, and in that he describes Mavis as being built like a burlap bag full of bobcats. I got no clue what that means, but it was hilarious. Yeah, so he travels with his dog Sloan, and this sparked a whole bunch of stuff, including a career for Bill Fries, where he then becomes C.W. McCall and is a country singer. By the way, C.W. McCall, Bill Fries, was a World War II prisoner of war veteran. And as I said, he was an ad man before he became a country singer. He passed in at the age of 93 last year, April 1st, April Fool's Day of 2022. It's kind of appropriate for him to pass on April Fool's Day because his songs were just, there was so much comedy in him. He was such a funny guy and really did a lot for the trucking community. But if you don't know his music, go and listen to it. Of course, he's the one that wrote Convoy, Wolf Creek Pass, Old Home Filler Up, Keep On Truck, Classifieds. He has so many great songs. Actually, as I was preparing this, I went back and listened to some of them because I hadn't listened to anything for a while. But yeah, so that about wraps it up for the 70s. And guys, I really appreciate all the comments you give me and suggestions on trucking companies that I do. I hope you enjoyed this decades video. You can reach out to me anytime you want. You can email me. I'll put it down here at finchresources@gmail.com. And I can also be found on Facebook or Instagram under Trucking Resources. Make sure to join my Facebook page because that's where, first of all, I tell you where I'm going to be at. And if you see me, I'll give you a t-shirt. I keep Trucking Resources t-shirts with me. And also, there's so many trucking companies out there that people are, you know, asking me to do stories on. So I'm going to start doing like polls and stuff to see which one's next, because I really don't care which one I do next. I love doing them. And yeah, so thanks everybody for watching. Like and subscribe if you like it, and I will catch you on the next one.